Hello, ladies and gents. Fred Kynes with all kinds of classics here. We are on episode 31. Episode 31. There have been, well, including 29 and a half, 31 other episodes of this build. We are somewhere in the neighborhood of about halfway, I'd say, through the build. And we are looking at today the frame, finishing up the chassis, trying to get everything into paint and moving right along. Here we're hanging the front suspension toward the end of this video. We're getting that old Mustang 2 or M2 front suspension put together and trying to work our way from now. We finished the frame, we're in the front, and we're going to work our way to the back. And this will include, as we go through these next few videos, this will include the construction of the brake lines, kind of a fully completed setup, brake lines, and then I'll get into the fuel lines and everything all the way through the valving prior to the brake booster or the master cylinder. So enjoy the video, like, subscribe, comment, share this. I'm seeing the population grow on the channel. I am receiving quite a few comments of all types, and I enjoy it. So keep it rolling, guys. Please enjoy and have fun with it. Thanks. All right, I just finished putting a coat of primer on it. So it turned out really good. Blocked out the down to 180 and then put a primer filler on, or a heavy bodied primer on. I'm going to let it flash. I'm not going to wet sand it. I'm just going to go straight to the paint. Again, that's black enamel. At this point, I'll just get it and get everything painted from here all the way back to here. I'll get that band painted. I can't do the tail section because I got to weld on the brackets. And at this point, what I'll do is you can see I sprayed. The chassis was upside down quite a few videos ago, and I painted the entire chassis in that position, in the upside down position. And so now I'm going to come in and paint. This is the entire top side, but I'm going to paint the entire top side. I'm not going to flip it over or anything like that. I'm going to have to handle it with kit gloves after I finish this paint job. But the whole point is that I'll have to get it up to weld those brackets on, and at that time I'll paint everything else. I'll paint the rear differential and all the rear suspension components after I weld that up and get it mocked up, and then get to bolting it in. So again, painting back to this section and painting the top side, lifting it up. I will paint all the chassis components for the rear when I can lift it up and finish weld the bottom, and then I'll spray the bottom. I might do that right on the rack, in fact, because at some point I'll have to mock the body onto it once I get the rear hung. For this, I got about an hour for the primer to cure or flash, and then I'll get to the enamel. In the meantime, I'm going to get a cup of coffee and begin bringing up all the front suspension components and painting those. There's not a lot. The sway bar, the control arms, the springs are already painted. So the control arms, the sway bars, the sway bar, the spindles are already painted and machined. The rack, of course, is already in its finished state, so really it's not a whole hell of a lot, but all that stuff is going to go gloss black like the rack, so, and the spindles. So it'll be flat black with the gloss black components, which to me, that'll look good. More than likely, I'll just hang them. I'll spray that, I'll hang them, get them all cleaned up. Should give me enough time then to come back, hit this with the enamel flat, and then immediately transition over to the gloss. And I'll have them hanging probably right there, or right there and right there, you know, just so they're out of the way. But again, there's not a whole heck of a lot of it. And then over the course of the week, I can slowly but surely get this thing assembled. So note that I did again, I cleaned up all of the come on, TIG welds, because I just didn't like them. But then I left the MIG welds. So it looks pretty, right? It looks pretty. It looks welded on. However, this looks like a one-piece unit now, welded onto the chassis. So I think it'll show a lot better that way. The only MIGs that I didn't clean up were for these cups, because that would have been a pain in the ass, and then to try to transition that into one piece, you know, that's kind of getting out of control. But I just did not like, you know, that compared to those. This is chassis nicks, which I am going to probably fill before I hit it with black. I don't know why I forgot all about that, but because you'll see that right when you look in the car. So this side nice and sharp. This side, for whatever reason, just got a little out of control. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I'm going to be honest with you. Once it's all in black and everything bolted in, I don't know. Jury's out. I'm getting a cup of coffee. Later. There we have it. Painted it all the way back to that ribbon, cross member in the back. I did come in and, oh, it's so hard to see. Straighten that out to look like that. Just basically took the rounded corner of the weld off. He's dried back. It's kind of it's a flat, but it dries back kind of satiny. Yeah, who knows? You know, with Rust-Oleum, it's looking kind of flat over here, kind of, as it's drying. Got that cross member painted. That was the last thing I sprayed, but boy, he turned out real nice. I don't know why I'm so happy with that. Probably because it's been molested so much from the original. And then I sprayed, these are dry. I mean, dry to the touch. These are all semi-gloss. Those are the lower control arms. And the sway bar. They're pretty. I think they should, you know, very minor contrast over the flat black, or whatever you want to call it, satiny black. But they'll just kind of stand out a little bit. Got my ventilator going. Opened a few windows and doors. It's like 19 out. 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I can just watch the paint dry, and God, it's nice to be this far along. It just feels good. When the weather gets warm and the doors can open, that's when I really just get pounding on it. But this guy just turned out beautiful. I can't wait to test the engine, try the engine in it. Tomorrow is when the rear links come in, so it's working. It's going like clockwork, I guess. That'd be the way to kind of look at it. I did get I guess I didn't show, but I did get the rear transmission cross member painted up. He turned out good. There's the steering. It's got dust all over it, but the steering bearing support. The plan with this is I got to get a compound, probably epoxy, and I've got this. This was a threaded steel pipe, like a gas pipe, and I put a shelf on it on one side so the bearing only goes so far. I'm retaining the bearing with two collars, locking collars, but on either side of it. When it goes in here, this is opened up 10 thou over, just enough to get an angle. And now I want to fill this with epoxy, so I'll probably scratch that a little bit. Fill it with epoxy, mount it on, fill it with epoxy, and then put a bead of epoxy, mount the whole works on, bolt it up rigid, and then fill it with structural epoxy. And that'll hold that bearing where it needs to be. The bearing is over here, I think. Yeah, right there, it's on the shaft. It's a sealed bearing. So, you know, it's not that terribly far away from the header, but all that being said, I think it's going to work out just fine. If it doesn't, it's a bolt-on piece. You know, I start over, make a new piece, get a different style bearing, get a bearing with a better thermal barrier. I don't know. But what I do know is I got 3 coats of black enamel on here. Took a while to spray it out, but she is good to go. She is good to go. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody for all the participation in this series of videos. It's been actually quite fun making them. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about my behaviors watching these, a lot about some of the ways that I do things. And, you know, I'm learning as I go. But to that end, it's extremely fun. And I welcome any and all comments, any and all suggestions, anything that you can offer certainly helps. So, beautiful. Thank you very much. And a quick sneak peek. Paint still curing. It is enamel. You can see a little bit of dampness in it. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Excuse me. Lower control arms and sway bar are on. Lower control arms, of course, aren't tightened down yet. You can't tighten them down until you get the suspension on. Put their run through, and the anti-sway bar is on. It's going to start to take shape. Paint is still wet in some spots, but starting to cure out. Really starting to look beautiful. All right. More later. Hello again. Monday morning. Got to get going to work. Bolting on the front suspension. I got my threaded rod set to the same distance. Bolted in. Pulled off one leg of the anti-sway bar after I got those, or when I get those rods in, so that I can get the precise locate for my lower control arms. You want to get the caster and the camber set up. And this side is done. This side uses a tool. Okay, so you got these, you know, run these in or out. Loosen one, you're either pushing this arm forward or back to set your caster and your camber. In addition, there's a tube that goes between, it's just a shaft with an opening on both sides. This is hollow. This goes on top of the bottom bolt, ball joint. stud, and this goes on the top of the ball joint stud. So he's in there good and tight. You just expand the shaft and tighten that. Then using an angle gauge, it isn't stuck to all my, everything, all the beans and the wieners got mixed up. Okay, so at this point, then I want to get my, this is for demonstration purposes. Get the wheel pointed straight ahead, and then you want to check your camber. Okay, in this case, I'm at just shy of straight up. I'm a little out 1 degree, it looks like. Okay, that's pretty straight on, half a degree or so out. And I need the top in, so I need it to swing that way. And then to check the camber, you just simply and I can strap it to that. Hold it perpendicular. In this case, I'm about 4.5, right? About 4.5 is measured there. So my specs are going to be 4 on the camber and an inch and a half, a degree and a half on the camber, 4 degrees on the caster. That's what I set him up, 1.5 and 4. I'll set him up for 1.5 and 4. Tighten everything down. That guy's already tight, that whole side. Tighten everything down, and then start the rack installation, the hubs, brakes, all that stuff. So going good, but it's time for me to go to work. Okay, I'm running a little late. I've got to get in and take a shower, but I did get the I did get the front spindles and the rack on, or the discs, the hubs, the rotors. Got those on. Everything's tight and right. So it's looking really good. The only thing is I don't have the toe finish. I have the toe close, but I want to get it on the ground before. You know what I mean. I want to get the weight on there. Found one of these. It's a forged piece. I chopped off the weld-on flange and made a new one. You know, just tapered it. And I'm going to redo it because then I don't have to go in and epoxy and whatever and blah, 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 blah. I can get this set up. I can get the angle before I tack it up. I can get everything right. And it's for the 3/4 inch shaft. I took it over to the press and drilled and tapped set screws into it. 4 for each side. That's where it said forged. Anyway, so it just makes a cleaner looking piece than I had. I would have been able to work with this, but I didn't have to go with the epoxy route. I didn't have to put 2 locking collars on. It's all integrated into that one piece. So I think that's a lot sexier. Takes up a little less real estate. The overall diameter is the same as this guy, but it takes up a less real estate on the shaft because of the integrated collars. So no minor, no slop, no gaps, no nothing. So I did whip out one of these pieces. It's going to be a copy of that piece. It is a copy of that piece. Okay, so I can bolt him on, size it up, tack it, boom, 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 boom. Here we go. So that's the plan, and I'm sticking with it. So we'll get that going here a little bit later on. But she's looking really good. She's looking really good. And I'm getting excited. Rear brackets did come in. Almost missed that part. Rear brackets did come in for the rear suspension. I could have, after getting them, if I would have. The thing is the time I spend doing this, I'm not, those need to be rounded. I'll continuously weld them on. I could have just made the tubes and welded them onto the chassis. They're just tack welded on. See, a couple of tacks holding these on in case there's minor adjustment. But they'll be good for mock-up. I'll continuously weld the plate on and clean up again. Clean up the TIG welds. This guy is heat signatures all over the place. Is doing what he can, but and it's fine. I'm not overly concerned. It's just that I need to get that dressed up so it looks a little prettier when it's on the car. Of course, it goes on the inside of the frame, and there's a lot of cleanup that's going to need to happen there. They mount in this neighborhood right there. Could be about 1.25 inches above the frame. Might need to slide forward, so I may need to slot this guy right here. But that's all part of the fun. So I got the 4 links, got the front arms, get those properly spaced to the drawing, to the design spec, get the axle under center, and start mocking up the rear. So we are on the road. Thanks for watching. Morning for me. So the calipers are on. I routed the brake lines. I decided to mount the brake line tab to the cross member. Okay. And in steering, I checked everything with the steering. Make sure that I'm going to clear the spring, the coil spring that goes into there. Both ways, both sides, and it wraps. It does very fine. It does very fine. In fact, I took the tie rod end off and just did full rotation, beyond the stop or beyond the extent of the rack, which makes me think there are no stops. The rack is the stop, the full extension on each side. But that's on, and I began to route the brake lines then. So I'm coming in, trying to keep them all pretty and tucked. You run across, come up, and you get the loop-de-loop there because the front brake mounts in the same fashion and then comes to a bracket holding both the lines. I haven't finished the driver's side yet. That one coil is the driver's side. They're routed underneath of the frame, and they come up right at where the frame starts to go level. Yeah, there you can see. So, if I do scrape the frame on the ground, it isn't gonna hit the brake lines. Then this will get routed into the top. The other side will come off. This side is running on the inside. Let me check here. Yeah, on the inside, on that side of the center line. And this brake line will run on the outside. So he'll turn up and connect right here. So master, and then the rears will come out. And route out and come into here. So very nice brake line. It's that CUNI or copper nickel coated brake line. It is wonderful to work with. It forms and bends, and you can get a nice straight run on it. It's just wonderful stuff to work with. So I will continue using that. I think I have enough. This will go to there, and then I'll have a stub, but I have my rear line made already. He's sitting up on the board there. He's still needs some forming, but he's going to run through the frame, not under the frame in that case. I considered hiding the brake lines and and all that. But then you get into service issues. You know, I could have put those tabs on the inside and ran it through the tube, and you know, that would have been a nightmare. And serviceability would be would have been a bitch, because the mounting tabs that I had to been on a side where your access to the nut would have been difficult and all that. So I'm scrapped that idea and ran them the traditional way. So anyway, it turned out really good. I'm really happy with it. And there we are for today. It's a tedious process. You can't get a heck of a lot done visually when you're working on brake lines, because you're concentrating on each and every little bend and that kind of stuff, and trying to get it dressed to look pretty. So there you have it. That's the events of the day, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're gonna just take a quick look at the brake lines. So on this side, we come off the caliper, we come in to the motor rod, and we hit the brake line. You can see them looping down there. Transition's nice and tight. Quick bend back toward the frame, follows over the top of the rack mount, then drops under. Okay, comes back, routes over the top of the rack mount on that side, comes over and swoops up and comes out the other side. The second loop in here, if I can get a decent shot of it, is the driver's side mount, looping back over the top, running parallel, and then they split. I gotta lay down here just a minute. Sorry about the wiggly camera. I'm doing it with my hands here. They split off into two holders underneath the frame, run down the frame, another set of clamps, and then they both sweep up the side of the frame. I kept the holes are on center, so I kept my distance. That's that header cut out right in here. I'm very close. Header cut out right in here, but the header is quite a bit inside because they're block huggers. No, that's not the header cutout. The header cutout is up here. That's the relief, like on that side, for a pass-through. The frame originally went in here, but I can pass my wiring and other components through this side. Anyway, then they sweep up and attached to that ugly GM proportioning valve. But I'm going to swing around now. This is that's a well nut or a rivet nut for 3/8, and that's where the front of the front mount for the body is, which is attached to here, and legs out about 1.5 inches. So the body basically is about an inch or so behind that. So the body should sit about right in this area here, covering that ugly GM proportioning valve. Now that's a disc OEM type proportioning valve, and I like to use, of course, as I said in the past, OEM type stuff. So it's a replacement part, and that's mounted to where the original brake pedal assembly went. And I'll take off from here, go into the frame with the rear brake line, and then my master then will be sitting up on the firewall, and I'll run down, maybe even behind the firewall, and snake down into those fittings there. So there it is. Happy with it, and until another day or another video.